Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television with me, Frank Pereira. As was expected, after taking over as Pakistan's Army Chief on the 29th of November, General Qamar Javed Bajwa has been quick to place his men in key positions. His task has no doubt been facilitated by the belated resignation of four Lieutenant Generals who had been superseded by his own elevation as Chief. Though it is still early days to make a pronouncement, some trends do emerge from these appointments. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will discuss the reshuffle in Pakistan's army brass and what implications will it have for Pakistan, India and the region. Joining me on the program today are retired Major General Ashok K. Mehta, he is a security analyst, Vivek Katju, former ambassador, Vinod Sharma, political editor of the Hindustan Times, and Mathew Joseph, associate professor, Jamia, Millia, Islmia. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Mr. Sharma, as expected, of course, General Bajwa has gone right to work, has made some very key appointments to some key positions in Pakistan.
Well, Naveed Mukhtar was tipped for a long time as the next ISI chief. And I remember I myself wrote, and I happened to mention this to my friend Mr. Katju as well, though it was in a different context, that I was of the view that Raheel Sharif may get an extension and Naveed Mukhtar may come as ISI chief and Rizwan Akhtar may go to Sindh as corps commander, but that hasn't exactly happened. But Naveed Mukhtar has come as ISI chief, and there is speculation that, I mean, it's believed that Naveed Mukhtar is related to the Pakistan Prime Minister's wife, Kulsum Nawaz, you know, but that apart, that political aspect apart, he is an old intelligence hand. Has been in charge of counterterrorism within the ISI. So, from their standpoint, he is a good choice. Now, there have been reports in the Indian media that he is a hawk vis-a-vis India. Well, I think that every ISI chief will be a hawk vis-a-vis India. Every single Pakistani general, except a few honorable exceptions, are anti-India, because the entire army infrastructure there, the mindset there is tuned to the thought that anti-India indoctrination makes for a good Pakistani soldier. This is a long-standing Pakistani doctrine which sustains over the years, and that is why there are problems between us and their army primarily. I'm not surprised at all, but the other aspect which is very interesting about Qamar Zaman Bajwa's appointments is that he has given key slots to recently promoted 3-star generals, and that is perhaps indicative of he seeking to build his own team without much resistance to any policy paradigm shift if he is so desirous, or that is in their view in the interest of what they are pursuing vis-a-vis us or in Afghanistan. But Naveed Mukhtar did a paper during a stint abroad where he has sort of given his thoughts about what Pakistan's interests are vis-a-vis India in Afghanistan. So I think that Afghanistan will be an area to watch closely.
Indeed.
For the period Naveed Mukhtar is the ISI chief.
You know, Major General, will we see an operational shift in focus really as far as the ISI is concerned now that Naveed Mukhtar is at the helm?
Yeah, before I answer that, let me say that the big picture goes back to before these appointments were made, and what Nawaz Sharif and the civilian government have wanted for a long time, and having been embarrassed considerably by the previous chief. In fact, the previous chief's popularity was at its zenith and his own was rock bottom. So when I use the word big picture, I refer to the fact that in the civilian military balance of power, the effort has always been by Nawaz Sharif to regain some of that, some modicum of control over the military. So he was hoping that he would be able to make two changes. One was the Chief of Army Staff, and he got his choice of the Chief of Army Staff, more or less. And the second was DGISI.
Yes.
Because in whatever happens in Pakistan, there are three key appointments, day to day, three key appointments. The Army Chief, the DGISI, and the DGISPR.
Yes.
And of course, the Director General of Military Operations, where it relates to the line of control. So I was saying that he got his first pick, that is the Army Chief. He got a chief that he wanted, and he wanted the DGIS. Rizwan Akhtar changed. Rizwan Akhtar had embarrassed. You know, this is the story of the Cyril Almeidas. In the month of October, there was a meeting, civil-military meeting, where Ajaz Chaudhry is supposed to have said to the military brass, the Rahil Sharif was there, Rizwan Akhtar was there, and he's telling them that please rein in the terrorists or take some action against them. And Rizwan Akhtar is supposed to have said, look, what is the difference between you and India? They are also telling us the same thing. So this was a huge embarrassment for the civilian establishment when this story was leaked and Parvez Rashid, the information minister, had to go. But there was one more story, one more commitment that was taken from the military establishment at that time, which did not get published, or rather leaked. And that was that there would be no more attacks on the against India, either by non-state actors or by the military. Now, that did not happen, as we saw what Rahil Sharif did on 29th of September.
I'm going to interrupt now, Major General, and just ask you, does that mean now, in the present scenario, no more attacks against India, that Bajwa is at the helm?
Well, you have the evidence. Last 12 days, there is a ceasefire, the ceasefire is holding. Now, when I said the modicum of civilian control, the idea is to calm down the line of control, in fact, to get the control back in the line of control. And there, for the last 12 days, there has been no firing on the line, except sniper fire.
Sure.
There are a lot of sniper fire taking place, and that has to do with the local relations between battalions, between brigades and sectors. And I am told, till about 3 days ago, we dropped 2 or 3 of their guys with sniper fire.
Sure.
So today, the sniper. So
let me get Ambassador Katju also into the picture.
Overall, I would say that we will see an effort at improvement of relations, but nothing will improve India-Pakistan till after the elections in India.
Okay.
But line of control will see
Okay.
a certain amount of control restored.
Okay. Ambassador Katju, does that mean that it is time for the DGMOs to sit down and talk? Because Major General is suggesting that the issues so far are on the border, and those are issues because locally there is a problem.
I think the real issue is if there is going to be a fundamental shift in the position and outlook of the Pakistan army, and the ISI is very much part of the army structure. I cannot conceive of any DGISI bucking the army chief for any sustained period of time. He is a creature of the army. Now, I for one do not share General Mehta's optimism. There can be small lulls, there can be brief pauses, and I do not subscribe to the view that India-Pakistan relations are being held hostage to the UP elections. I think that is a fallacious view, because the problems between India and Pakistan are much too deep to be held sort of hostage or to be governed by state elections in India, howsoever important those elections may be. Furthermore, of course, these changes were inevitable because any military chief brings with him a desire to fashion his own team. And let us be clear that in fashioning his team, and the DGISI is very much part of that team, he allows very little choice to anyone outside the army. In the sense that if Nawaz Sharif was going along with him in his choice of the DGISI, then that's fine. But if Bajwa thought that Nawaz Sharif's boy was not acceptable to him, he would not have accepted him. Let us not forget that the Pakistan Army Chief is a center of power in his own right, and perhaps the most important center of power, or certainly the most important center of power in Pakistan.
Indeed.
So these are the facts. Yes, as far as India is concerned, the important appointments in the Pakistan Army, apart from the Army Chief, are the DGISI and some corps commanders where the corps have been positioned in relation to India as distinct from Afghanistan or other duties that they may have, internal duties, etc. So these appointments have to be watched, but the fundamental structure of the army and the outlook of the army, I don't see any basic changes taking place there in the near future.
Indeed, sure. Mathew Joseph, I mean, some people in Pakistan have been talking about how there is going to be a transition from really military power of Pakistan to the civilian power, the civilian government taking over the military at some point in time, and they seem to be, there are murmurs at least cropping up in Pakistan at the moment. Do you believe that Nawaz Sharif can ultimately sometime, overpower Bajwa and control the army at some point in time?
We cannot say that very clearly at this point. What is important is that, one government has completed its full term and another government is about to complete the full term. I hope they will be able to complete the full term. If it happens, so then 10 years of, army completely out of power in a technical sense. But even then they are out of power. They are controlling everything from behind the curtain. So that situation will continue. But at least for a new generation of people, army is outside power. That is the impression which they have created. And for army also, their corporate interests are the supreme thing at the moment. For them, this arrangement is better at this point of time. So they will be only interested to continue that. They will be having an upper hand right now, and that will be continuing. The thinking that civilian establishment, civilian power will be established in the near future is basically a probability only. At the moment, we cannot say anything very conclusively about that particular thing.
Mr. Sharma, Nawaz Sharif has leaked some photographs of Bajwa saluting him. We've seen those images in the press. We've also heard reports from Pakistani media talking about how Bajwa was sitting across the table from Nawaz Sharif and not next to him during a meeting. So what does all that indicate?
It doesn't indicate anything. These are early days. Any new army chief has to establish himself. Mind you, see, what is at once a good augury is also a bad augury for the civilian regime, that the Prime Minister appoints the new army chief. Now, if the new army chief is really not the senior most general, which Mr. Qamar Zaman Bajwa indeed isn't, then he does everything possible to live down the image of being an appointee, a chosen appointee, or the appointee of the Prime Minister. This has happened time and again, be it Parvez Musharraf or be it Raheel Sharif, though Raheel Sharif was from the civilian military relations point of view was a better bet, because though he in the later stages asserted himself, and there were some embarrassing moments when he acted on certain charges against even the former army chief Kayani, his predecessor, and there was huge speculation in the Pakistani media that this is the end of Mr. Nawaz Sharif, because there are allegations against him in Panama leaks, and the opposition in Pakistan is still at it. As we are discussing, the parliament there is a opposition move to bring about a petition for an investigation into those charges. So I don't think Nawaz Sharif, though who has had a uneasy relationship with successive army chiefs, starting from Jahangir Karamat, you know. I mean, four army chiefs, he had uneasy relationships, Abdul Wahid Kakar, Jahangir Karamat, and then Musharraf, and then in between, there was one more general, I forget the name. So, you know, he is not really a politician who is easily accepted by the top brass, though he may have some support on the mid ranks, you know. But what is more important is that who are these new 3-star generals? What is their background? Because, you know, it is believed that the officers in the Pakistan Army who are now coming up belong to the crop that was sown during Zia's time. They are the people who are coming up now, and they are from middle class backgrounds, you know, and they are clearly right-wing in their thinking, religious right-wing in their thinking. So, as to how do we deal with them when they come to positions of importance vis-a-vis us, and whether, as it was being discussed, I agree with the Ambassador Katju that the Pakistan Army can't be easily having a personality transplant with the change of a general at the top, you know. It doesn't happen in institutions. There will have to be a miracle happening between India and Pakistan. Ever since the new regime, we have had a new regime in this country. In Pakistan, there is an element of distrust against our government, and our government has an element of distrust, huge distrust for their actions, for the army's actions, despite overtures, positive overtures by Mr. Modi by inviting Mr. Nawaz Sharif for his inaugural and then landing up in Lahore to wish him a happy birthday and to make an appearance at the wedding at his house. We have been stabbed in the back, so to speak. You know, there was Uri, there was a Pathankot before that. And then any peace initiative between India and Pakistan has to be backed, has to have the force of popular support, which is not existing. And unfortunately, even in Pakistan, as of today, there is no popular support for a dialogue with India.
Indeed.
On account of the distrust that they harbor against our regime. So, you know, it's a no-win situation as of now. Yes, of course, on the limited part of elections in India, the governments assume some elbow room after elections are behind them, and they can maybe become a little creative in their thinking and risk-taking. But then General would know that before 2019 there is another round of assembly elections, and then we have elections in 2019.
Yes.
And a senior diplomat who knows the mind of the Pakistan government or has been in touch with them told me that they don't expect any creative engagement between India and Pakistan, at least in the first term of our Prime Minister.
Indeed, fair enough. Major General, you know, you spoke about the ISPR, the Inter-Services Public Relations wing, where there is no DG at the moment, and that was the agency that was really, you know, famous for ensuring Raheel Sharif's popularity, and that was the agency that ensured that he was as popular as he was at his helm. So why, I mean, that position is not being filled. So do you believe that Bajwa is trying to stay away from the media, or what's the thinking behind that?
No, but again, I just want to make one brief comment. I did not say, Mr. Katju, that India-Pakistan relations are hostage to the appointment of the new chief. What I said was that there will be, in the short term, there will be a relaxation on the line of control, that possibilities of relations improving or any will happen only after the elections, this first round of elections. Because we must remember that the Pakistanis have been hit badly at the Heart of Asia conference on Afghanistan. The way the Afghan delegation, the Sartaj Aziz and his delegation was treated was what they deserved for what they did to the Home Minister. And they do not want to lose any ground in Afghanistan. And the new DG ISI, as we heard from Vinod, is an expert or is a self-proclaimed expert on Afghanistan. And they do not want a hostile front, a second hostile front in Afghanistan. So in the short term, there will be easing of tensions and ground prepared for some conversations post the elections. That does not mean that everything will be all right. The India-Pakistan relations are disputes that have not been settled for 70 years and are unlikely to be settled at least during my lifetime, because these are ideological disputes. But coming to answering your question, Asim Salim Bajwa I have known from the days he was a young major. He's an old ISI hand. He was a young major in Nepal and he conducted an operation Tufail from Hotel Karnali in Kathmandu. That operation was to destabilize Gurkha recruitment into the Indian army. With the help of the Nepali authority, the situation was retrieved. So he's an old hand and he has assisted in Rahil Sharif, his status. I mean, those posters that appeared in cantonments that Rahil Sharif take over didn't happen without the help of ISPR. So the search is on to look for somebody who would be acceptable to the civilian government also. Because I said to you right in the beginning, the big picture was that you wanted a chief, Nawaz Sharif wanted a chief of the chief of staff, because you know he was worried till the last moment that the army chief might do this, that and the other. And second, he wanted Rizwan Akhtar change. Now, they look out for this. But in the short term, till General Bajwa finds his marbles, the civilians will apparently be able to exercise a modicum of control over the military. And therefore, they will take some time. General Bajwa will take a little time to find a successor who is somewhat acceptable to Nawaz Sharif also.
Fair enough. Ambassador Katju, do you want to respond to what the General is saying? Also, General, elections happen all around the year in India. So, you know, after UP, there will be some other elections. So, do you still believe?
2019.
Yes, indeed.
But we have these periods when we talk and then the interruptions
Let Ambassador Katju make his point. Yes, Ambassador.
No. If I am allowed to speak, I'll give a comment. That is that I do not think that Indian state elections impact in any significant measure on the Pakistan policy or actions at any time of the government of India, which includes the present government. That is an argument which does not appeal to me, because I don't think it's based on facts. The second point that I'll make is that even a new army chief is not under the control or influenced by the civilian authorities when it comes to India policy and other sensitive areas of Pakistan's policy. There's a corporate culture in the Pakistan army vis-a-vis India, and that is something which he is part of, the new army chief. So to imagine that that General Bajwa is some kind of a tabula rasa as of now, and therefore there is an opportunity for Nawaz Sharif to influence him, I think is not correct. Now, let's go back, as Vinod was saying. Nawaz Sharif inherited 2 generals, or rather, he inherited 3 generals during his 3 prime ministerships, including the present, the 3rd one. And the first general asked him to leave, that was General Wahid Kakar. He turned out the second general, which is Karamat, because that was the only time in the late 90s when Nawaz Sharif, and more than Nawaz Sharif, his father Abba Mia, had been able to make inroads in the Pakistan senior officer class. Nawaz Sharif inherited also Kayani, but that was a brief period and nothing much happened. And Kayani, in any case, at that stage was on the back foot. Now, Nawaz Sharif has appointed 3 army chiefs, including General Bajwa. He has been singularly unlucky in the first, Musharraf, who turfed him out. The second, Rahil Sharif, there was much hope that Nawaz Sharif would be able to influence him. He failed, singularly failed, and we know that Rahil Sharif gave him a pretty rough ride. And now it is Bajwa. I don't think that Nawaz Sharif will be 3rd time lucky in this case.
Indeed. All right, fine. I've got about 2 minutes left on the program, so I'd like to get final comments from all my guests, starting with you, Professor Mathew. You know, as far as Bajwa's policy of prioritizing internal security is concerned, do you believe that these latest appointments suggest that that's what he's going to do going forward?
It is not an indication that that is going to be his priority, in the sense that any army general will be definitely having a wish to have his own team. We should not read too much into that. I think at the moment Pakistan's army's major concern would be the coin operations within the country, as well as the traditional enemy, how to deal with India. That will continue for the time being. So we don't expect any such kind of big change going to happen within the short term.
Indeed. All right. Mr. Sharma, your final closing comments. Very quickly.
I think that, of course, Mr. Bajwa has been attributed the same traits, the same thinking which Rahil Sharif was attributed before his appointment, that he considers terrorism to be a bigger threat to Pakistan than India. But then when before he debated office, Mr. Rahil Sharif did have his attribution for the surgical strikes, I think that Afghanistan would be very interesting to watch.
Indeed.
Because Kayani's thought that we cannot face an army on the eastern borders, which is Indian army, and a pro-India army on the western borders, which is that army trained by India, of Afghan forces trained by India. That thing will continue, and because of the present regime's position, which is very, very ostensibly pro-India as of today, I think that Afghanistan would be bigger on their radar.
Sure.
Of course, India will always be there, it's a constant.
Indeed. And final comments from you, Mr. Katju, because you've just got 30 seconds left on the program. Ambassador, close the show for us.
I think, as always, I would advocate that realism should govern our policy, and we should not look for will-o'-the-wisps. And as far as the reshuffle new in Pakistan army are concerned, including right at the top, because we know the culture of this army.
Sure, fair enough.
Frank, you haven't allowed the
yes,
military.
please. Yes, the military.
I know
Very
you're
quickly.
doing a program about civil military control, but I would still say that in the short term, the symbolism that you pointed out, you want to demonstrate that there is some restoration of civilian control in Pakistan with this new regime. Whether that actually plays out, unlikely that it will, that is the effort of the civilian government. And I agree with Vinod that the point I made earlier, that Afghanistan is the new focus, new arena, and line of control will be relatively quiet.
Fair enough. I'm completely out of time on the program this evening, so I'll have to call it a wrap at that. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, gentlemen, and thank you so much for watching as well. That's it on this edition of The Big Picture.